Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Squawka Talker podcast. With the Premier League back at full pace here on the Talker, we are building up to a massive, huge, blockbuster showbiz weekend in the Premier League title race. Manchester City versus Liverpool is the headline act, not just of this weekend, potentially of the entire season. Pep and Klopp go head to head, but despite all the attention being on the Etihad, there is a big weekend packed with Premier League predictions, all to come on today's show. We'll be giving our suggestions, calls and theories for all 10 games this weekend, with a special slot reserved for City against Liverpool at the end of part one of the podcast. Plenty to get through on a busy show today. My name is Feargal Brennan, and joining me as ever to get through it all is SQUAWKA'S chief football writer, Mohammed Butt. Busy weekend, crunch weekend. Are you ready?
I'll tell you what, after Karim Benzema last night, I'm ready for anything, mate. After 2 hat-tricks in a row, he's got me hyped. You know, you've got Barcelona tonight in the Europa League. I'm really, I'm feeling really good. La Liga's back on top, baby. And it's not about La Liga at all, but, just had to get that in there. Get the little dig in there. Also, obligatory Pedri mention. Nothing to do with anything. But, Pedri's great.
Just to get him in. Yeah,
just to get him in. Premier League's going to be good. Some very, very good weekends. Some very tasty fixtures. And I've got some pretty spicy takes lined up because, that's me.
And it is a massive weekend. And alongside Mo, we also have Football London correspondent Kaya Kaynak. It is huge. Arsenal still massive role to play in the race for top four. There might not be as much attention on the Gunners this weekend, but it's a huge weekend all round.
Yeah, I can't think why. Is there a big game on this weekend? I don't know. No one's really mentioned it. There might be something going on elsewhere. But yeah, feeling good and looking forward to an exciting weekend at Premier League football.
Brilliant stuff. Right, we're going to jump straight into predictions for this weekend of Premier League action. Game week 32, which means there's only 7 weekends of Premier League football left this season. So we're going to start in chronological order. We're going to go right the way through from the Friday night action all the way through to that big one on Saturday afternoon with Manchester City up against Liverpool. So, Kaya, we're going to get started. Friday night action, the Friday night lights at St James's Park. Newcastle are home to Wolves. Wolves looking to put some pressure on Manchester United in the race for Europe. 3 wins in their last 5 in the Premier League, including that local derby against Aston Villa last time out. Newcastle probably done enough to be safe, but no wins in 3. What's your call for this?
I think first off, we should just take a minute to sort of take a look at why this game has been chosen to be televised. It's very confusing for me because there's so many exciting matches this weekend. There's lots of relegation 6-pointers, and Sky have gone for probably the most pointless game of the weekend. With all due respect to Wolves and Newcastle, they're both safe. I don't think Wolves are going to probably qualify for Europe. I think Newcastle aren't going to go down. So this game has so little riding on it. It's a proper sort of end of season, mid-table clash. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be entertaining because there is lots of exciting things at play. I think Newcastle, I would make them just about favourites for this one, just because of the form they're on. I know, obviously, they look really poor defensively against Spurs last weekend, but they'll be wanting to bounce back from that. And in front of their home crowd, I'd back them for a 1-0 win because I just don't think Wolves are going to score up against what looks like a better Newcastle defence, especially if they can improve from last week.
Moving on from Friday to Saturday, Mo, we're going to give you your first shout, and it's a personal one because it involves Manchester United. Everton welcoming United to Goodison Park. Everton are in a mess. We're recording this podcast on the back of them losing away at Burnley last night. But as bad as things are for Frank Lampard and Everton, would it actually be a bit of a shock if United got it together and got a positive result at Goodison?
Look, Everton was 16th when Lampard got the job. They've won just 2 of 9 games in the league since. They're 17th now. They're bad. They're bad, and they're going to get relegated because Yerry Mina is the key to that defense. I always joke with Jake that he was the best defender in the world. Obviously, he's not, but he's clearly much better than even we used to give him credit for because he's played 8 games this season. Everton lost just 2 of them, both to Aston Villa, and they've lost to Newcastle, but he got injured when it was 1-0 Everton, so that doesn't count. The 21 games they've played, they've lost 16 times. The 25 rate loss rate with him, 76 rate loss rate without him. They're dead in the water. Lampard's useless. Even Man United can't mess this one up. Let's put it that way. United are a mess themselves. They've got their own problems. But, Cristiano probably has decided he'll play this weekend. So they'll actually have a striker because, of course, Ragni doesn't seem to rate Rashford at all. They'll as long as Ilanga can stop tackling his own players as they're about to score last-minute winners, United should win this one. I reckon 3-1 United. Everton are really, really bad and they're going to get relegated.
Okay, right. We're going to keep going with the Saturday games. Throw it back over to you, Kaya, and this is a big one for Arsenal at home to Brighton this weekend. Obviously, on the back of losing to Palace in Monday night action, top four position is under threat. Spurs obviously winning last weekend. Manchester United, Mo's obviously given a positive prediction for them to win, which would put a bit more pressure on Arsenal. But I want to actually talk about the team situation because there's two massive injury stories coming out of Arsenal this week. Kieran Tierney has been ruled out until next season. Big blow for Arsenal. And Thomas Partey is also likely to miss at least 2 to 3 weeks of action. So Kieran Tierney is a huge player for Arsenal. Nuno Tavares came in against Crystal Palace and it was tough going for him. We know he had that issue against Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup when he got hooked off and he was very annoyed. Clearly hasn't learnt a lot of lessons. Mikel Arteta needs a Kieran Tierney plan. What is it?
Yeah, it was tough for Nuno. He was kind of thrown to the Wolves on Monday night just because of the system Arsenal play now. He obviously came into the team earlier in the season in October and looked pretty good, but back then Arsenal were playing a different tactic. It was sort of when they were experimenting with that 4-4-2. And at the time, Albert Sambi Lokonga was playing a lot deeper and was sort of covering for Nuno when he went forward. This time, things have changed. Arsenal now play a very sort of Pep Guardiola style 4-3-3. And instead of having a left-sided central midfielder who can sort of just drop in and cover the left back, both their midfielders are encouraged to get forward. And it's been Thomas Partey just on his own in that single pivot, which means that with Cedric getting forward on the right, the left back, who previously has obviously been Kieran Tierney, is then obviously asked to do a lot of defending. And that's not Nuno's game. He's never been a great defender. He's not the most switched on guy in the world when it comes to marking people, tracking runs, that kind of stuff, positioning. So unless Arsenal look to tweak their system, I think they might have to look at someone else at left back. There are options. You can put Cedric over to left back. You can drop Granit Xhaka into left back. I've even heard people suggest Kaya Kaynak playing at left back. Personally, I wouldn't do any of those. I would keep Nuno in the side, but I would change things, especially in the midfield. Thomas Partey, he may be fit for this game against Brighton. We're not 100% certain. We'll find out a bit more in the press conference tomorrow. But if he is fit, then I'd play him in a double pivot alongside Granit Xhaka, and having Granit Xhaka just dropping into that sort of left-sided defensive half space where he spent a lot of time, and just giving Nuno license to go forward, because you're going to have to adapt the way this Arsenal side plays. They've had an attacking bias on the right-hand side. That's going to have to change, and that's just the way it is. If they want to come top four, they're going to have to adapt. It's obviously a massive blow losing someone as big as Kieran Tierney. He's their vice-captain. He's probably one of their best defenders, one of their better players this season. So it's going to be tough. Last season, losing him really threw their season off the rails in terms of the Europa League, and I think they'll be hopeful that it doesn't happen again this time around.
Don't put Saka left back, please. Don't. He's beyond that now. Please,
he's wasted. He's wasted.
I agree. He's also Arsenal's top scorer this season, so I definitely wouldn't put him at left back.
Before I was going to say, before we move on to Southampton, give us your prediction on this. A Tierney-less Arsenal at home to Brighton.
Sorry, you have to put the reins on me when I start talking about Arsenal. I'll go a bit over the top, but I'm going to still go for a 2-0 win for Arsenal, despite all the problems they're having. I think Brighton is probably the best team in the league you could play right now if you want to get an easy win under your belt and sort of get back on the horse. So, yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 to the Arsenal.
Right, we're going to flick across and keep powering on with the Saturday games. Mo, Southampton are home to Chelsea. We actually did a video earlier on this season of how to score against Chelsea. Brentford might have watched it. Karim Benzema definitely watched it. Thanks very much, Karim, for checking that out. Not to be educated on how to score goals, lest we educate Karim Benzema. But Chelsea have got issues, Mo. They are struggling to keep clean sheets. They're struggling to not make mistakes at the back. And Brentford exposed that big time last weekend. Southampton are one of the few teams that will play with two strikers. They will look to go full throttle, and this could cause big problems for Chelsea.
I mean, Benzema definitely watched our video, because if you look at that third goal, that's exactly what I said to do, is press Rudiger and Mendy when they're in possession and you can get results. And look what happened, right? So Benzema definitely watched. Brentford was different. Brentford just counter-attacked Chelsea to death. Chelsea's transition defence was awful. I don't know what happened to them in transition against Brentford. It was just, they just capitulated. They were not existent. And I just think, that plays perfectly into Southampton's strengths. However, Thomas Tuchel is not, he knows how serious this is. He said it after the Real Madrid game. We have to recover our level. We're nowhere near our level. So I think this is going to be a serious back to basics, like really grind it out defensive. Chelsea are going to come here, like shut up shop. They're not going to give anything away. I think they'll score one goal, but I do think they'll score one goal. They'll got 1-0, but I think their eyes are going to be on Madrid. And last 20 minutes, I think they get caught out. I think 1-1, but Chelsea are going to get back to basics.
Someone that definitely needs to get back to basics is anybody down in the relegation battle, Kaya. Watford at home to Leeds this weekend. Maybe slightly unfairly, we've written Watford off and saying that themselves and Norwich are probably already down. Leeds find themselves in a position where they have to wait. They've played more games than anyone down in the relegation battle, 31 games, 30 points on the board. They're still waiting to see what happens with Everton, what happens with Burnley, before knowing what their own picture is. But they've got an opportunity this weekend to go to Watford, maybe drive another nail in their Premier League coffin, bring themselves up to 33 points, which you would say, based on this new average of 36 to 37 points, would put them in striking distance of making it a two-horse race to get relegated between Everton and Burnley.
Yeah, I think Watford possibly can catch Burnley. I think Everton even. I think Everton's situation and the amount of points they've dropped really has brought a lot of teams who previously looked cut adrift back into it. And obviously, I think Roy Hodgson has been pitching in training, putting some lovely balls over the top for the attacking during training. So I think if they can get him in the side doing that, then why not? Unfortunately, though, he can't play for them, and for that reason, I think Leeds probably will have enough in this game. I think they're starting to look a little bit better under Jesse Marsch. They're sort of developing a little bit more of a style and seems to be responding well to his methods. So Watford are a good team defensively, but Leeds are going to go sort of with their attacking style, and I think that's just going to about win out on the day. It'll be a tight one. I think it'll be a really good game actually, but I think Leeds will come away with a 2-1 victory, which will probably be enough to unofficially relegate Watford and probably just about keep Leeds safe as well.
Okay, fair enough. It's still such a tight picture down the bottom in terms of who's going to be relegated, but I think we could see a bit of a bolt in either direction this weekend. Watford Leeds is going to be a big one in deciding who is playing Premier League football next season. Final game of Saturday, Mo, is Aston Villa at home to Tottenham, and I want to focus on Tottenham and particularly their front three, their all-powering, all guns blazing front three of Harry Kane, Son Heung-min and Dejan Kulusevski. Now, we've been working on some flashy, fancy names for them. SKS, Son Kane-sevski, etc. They're all terrible, but what is not terrible is these three guys together. They've been absolutely on fire in recent weeks. Tottenham have got 17 goals in their last 5 Premier League games, and 8 of them have been scored by at least one of these, with 60% of those goals assisted by one of their mates knocking a ball in for them. So what I want to look at is, in comparison to the teams above them, Manchester City and Liverpool, obviously there's so much focus on them this weekend. But Son, Kane and Kulusevski up against Liverpool's front three, whether that's Salah, Mane and Jota or Salah, Mane and Luis Diaz. These three are close. Are they the best front three outside of Liverpool?
They're the best front three, full stop, because this is a front three. This is these three guys, and they play together, and they are symbiotic, and their games work better. I mean, look, Kane and Son is the greatest partnership in the Premier League history. 39 goals between them, direct goals, linked goals or assists between the pair of them. Kulusevski fits them like a hand in a glove, right? Since 2022, since the start of 2022, all three of them combined have got 14 Premier League goals and 14 Premier League assists. They're perfect. And whereas Liverpool are in a state of flux because it's not Firmino, Salah, and Mane anymore, but it's not also Jota, Mane, and Salah. And it's now Luis Diaz comes into the mix. So Liverpool's front three don't have a set front three anymore. They have a squad, and they rotate. But Spurs, it's these three guys, and these three guys are perfectly in sync with each other. And so this is the best front three in the league. I like Villa a lot actually under Steven Gerrard. I think they've had a bit of they're due to score some goals again. Right, they've scored 7 goals in 2 games, and they've scored like 2 goals in the last 3 games. So they're due to have a goal explosion again. But I just think Spurs are too good right now. This is the thing with Conte. As soon as they bottomed out of the Conference League, without even having to lose a game, by the way, that was very clever from Daniel Levy. As soon as they did that, that was it. You knew they were going to rock out the lead because Conte, as we saw with Chelsea 2016-17, when you give this guy a week in between games, no European football, which he sucks at, by the way, he's terrible at European football. If you give this guy no European football and just a week to train and hammer his players in fitness and tactical shape and discipline and everything like that, they're amazing. He turned Chelsea into one of the most dominant teams ever, basically like this, right? Overnight, right? And Spurs have got these 2 amazing world-class forwards. Kulusevski is really, really promising, potentially world-class as well. They've got great players basically everywhere except in goal and at fullback. And at fullback doesn't even matter because Conte's best when he has rubbish fullbacks. He makes them into great fullbacks, right? And then you can go Hugo Lloris. He's still Hugo Lloris, even though he's quite clearly a fading force. They're really good, Spurs. They're really good. They're on the march. They're going to finish. They'll. I mean, look, Arsenal have the game in hand, but it's Chelsea are waning as well. So I mean, don't rule out Spurs finishing top four, even though I think Arsenal still have the edge because they have the game in hand. They're definitely going to win today, though. I think they'll win 4-2. They'll be not today. They'll be at the weekend. They'll win 4-2. I think.
Okay, right. That wraps up Saturday's action. So we're going to move on to Sunday. Brentford at home to West Ham. Kaya, London derby. Brentford probably in that group of teams that are just on the right side of safety. Still a bit of work to do. West Ham pushing in Europe. They'll be playing midweek in the Europa League and obviously still have designs on top four, maybe top six to get themselves in the Europa League next season. How do you see this going down?
I think West Ham are probably going to suffer a post-Europa League hangover. I think they're really going to go for it on Thursday night against Lyon, or this evening as we're recording it. And I think, they should go for it. It's probably one of the biggest games in their history, this European quarter-final. I think they have a decent chance, actually, of beating Lyon across two legs. So the squad depth isn't that great, and I can't see David Moyes making too many sort of full 11 style changes across the two games, as we've seen previous teams in Europe do. That said, I think they'll go all out on Thursday night. I think they'll take it a little bit easier on Sunday and prepare themselves for the second leg, because I don't think that game's going to be done in the first leg. So I think Brentford, off the back of that win over Chelsea last week, they're looking in good form. Christian Eriksen's playing really well. He's been a really good addition to their side. I'm gonna back them for a 1-0 victory, and I think probably West Ham in losing this game will rule themselves out of the top four race. But I think they're definitely in it for top six, maybe even top seven if United can't sort of get their act together.
Moving on, Leicester City against Crystal Palace. Mo, I'm going to go to you first on this because Jeff Schlupp is on my mind, and I'm labelling this one the Jeff Schlupp derby because I really like Jeff Schlupp. He's a really important player for Palace. Patrick Vieira's probably got another level out of him that maybe under Roy Hodgson we didn't see. And he's genuinely in that block of players that are so underrated within the Premier League. He doesn't make a lot of top 10 lists. He definitely doesn't make a lot of combined 11s or fantasy football picks. But he's a really good Premier League player, coach's dream, all the other cliches that you could throw around. So this has actually got me thinking about who are the most underrated players in the Premier League. Jeff Schlupp is definitely one of them. Crystal Palace fans love him. Patrick Vieira is a big fan of him. Spoke glowingly about him on Monday night. Who is your most underrated player in the Premier League? Everybody loves to have a player that they keep in the pocket and they can just roll out and impress everybody because nobody ever thought of it. And we know that you love doing that. So go on. Who's your most underrated player in the Premier League?
All right. Before we get to that, just 1 second. When you mentioned that Hodgson pass earlier, I'm so associated Hodgson with Palace now. I was thinking, oh yeah, Michael Olise. That's why he learned to do that. But of course, Hodgson was never at Palace when Michael Olise was. It was just. But always, yeah. But with regards to Palace, I think they will be too good for Leicester. I think Leicester will have a Conference League bit of a hangover. I think Palace showed against Arsenal they're a very, very good team. They're in great form, to be honest. They've really been playing well lately. Vieira's got them humming. Zaha will be fully fit. I don't think he was fully fit against Arsenal. They have Elise back. He wasn't. Didn't make the Arsenal game. And they'll have Jeffrey Schlupp, who's playing really well too. So I think. They'll have 2 and I think they'll win 3-1. As the most underrated player in the Premier League, look, I'll tell you who it is, mate. It's Bruno Fernandes, the one everyone says is having a rubbish season. Yeah, he's got 6 XA, expected assists this season. That's second in the Premier League. He's created 14 big chances. That's joint third. He's created 77 chances overall. That's top. He's played 20 through balls. That's top as well, right? He's been not quite at his brilliant best, but he's been still a fantastic player. And everyone's saying he's having a rubbish season because he's passing to a bunch of idiots who can't finish shots. What do you want to do? The man has created 6 expected assists. He's got 14 big chances created. That's level with Mohamed Salah, just behind Harry Kane and Son. He's got less assists than Lacazette. Does that make is that his fault? Is that somehow a deficiency on him? But if Bruno Fernandes is too, Bruno Fernandes to be high rated, I'll say Rafinha. Rafinha's fantastic, magnificent winger. Never really given as much praise as he deserves because he's fantastically fun to watch. 5.4 for expected assists this season, which is 4th behind Alexander-Arnold, Bruno Fernandes, and Mohamed Salah. 58 take-ons completed, which is 4th. By the way, take-ons completed. Adama Traore is still 2nd in the Premier League. Hasn't played since November. That's hilarious. 58 chances created for Rafinha. That's 5th. 9 big chances created as well. That's not quite that high. It's like 12th or something, but He's still doing the business. He's only got 9 goals and 3 assists because he's playing for Leeds, and Leeds until Jesse Marsh showed up they were not having a good time. So, but yeah, Rafinha I think is really, really good. I think Leeds have now dipped enough, and he's still playing well enough that he's going to earn a big move in the summer. I don't know where to. Barcelona were linked, but I mean, it could be anywhere really. He's really, really fantastic. So I would say Bruno Fernandes, with a caveat that no one's appreciating for how good he is. But if that's not allowed, then fine, Rafinha.
I am absolutely amazed that you've picked Bruno Fernandes, little known Portuguese international.
Everyone says he's rubbish.
United
Everyone's
star.
saying he's rubbish, and he's still doing the business.
Bruno Fernandes, wow. I mean, I suppose the real big surprise is that you didn't pick Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but, grateful for small mercies.
Listen, Kaya, he's not having a good season. So he isn't having a good season, so I couldn't pick Wan-Bissaka.
Okay, fair enough. And as last week's podcast proved, maybe we were wrong about Aaron Wan-Bissaka all along. So, Kaya, hopefully you've understood the brief a bit more. Underrated, maybe someone that isn't, playing for one of the biggest teams in the country, or a decorated international player.
Yeah, I'm going to go for another Man U player. I'm going to pick Cristiano Ronaldo. No, I'm joking. I'm going to go for a player from Wolves who I think has really impressed me this season, and I think he was ridiculously unfortunate not to have been in the most recent England squad, and that's Max Kilman. I think he is one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. I think he's being linked to some of the big teams. I think a lot of the big teams are starting to take notice of him now, which is about time. Chelsea have shown interest. Apparently Manchester United have also shown interest. And he's someone who he started off his career in futsal, which means that he's really technically gifted, which is something that I don't think you necessarily... There's not that many left-footed centre-backs who are really good on the ball. And he's one of the best dribblers. I think he's up there, and I think FBref have him up there in sort of the 81st, 82nd percentile for dribbles, 86th for dribbles completed. Successful dribbles is up there in the 83rd. Doesn't get dribbled past very often as well. So, yeah, he's a really fantastic player. I think he works well in that back three with Wolves, and I think he was to go to Chelsea. I think that would work well also. So I really like Max Kilman. I think he probably should have been in the England squad ahead of someone like a Tyrone Mings. I think he offers a lot more. Defensively, really solid, and also a really good player on the ball.
That's a good shout. You know what? When you said Wolves, I thought you were going to say Jose Sarr. Just quick shout on Jose Sarr. Yeah. He's another player who could have for most underrated. This guy has prevented, according to Opta's data, he's prevented 9.7 goals this season. That's absurd. Like the next highest is David De Gea on 5. And next highest after him is Alisson on 2.9. 9.7 goals. His expected goals on target conceded is 29.7. He's conceded 20 goals. Like he's faced 123 shots, and he just keeps saving them, man. He's having an outrageous season. Like everyone was wondering, oh god, they're going to lose Rui Patricio. What are they going to do? Well, they got someone who's better than Rui Patricio. Like it's outrageous. I mean, I don't know if he can keep this up. Obviously, it feels very unsustainable. Kind of like David De Gea's 2017-18 season, where he could like stopped 11 goals or whatever it was. So I don't think this is sustainable necessarily. But this season, I mean, this guy's underrated as hell. He's having an incredible year. He's been the best goalie in the Premier League.
My pick for Premier League's most underrated player, because I've looked to go along the lines of you need an underrated attribute to be a truly underrated player. You want to do the stuff that nobody else wants to do, the unglamorous stuff, the unfashionable stuff. So I've gone for Brentford's Christian Norgard. So I'm basing this on those stats that he is top of the shop or pretty close to being top of. According to Opta, he's second for successful pressures in the Premier League, 616 so far this season. And of those that were successful in winning the ball in a progressive possession sense, he's top 194, 33% of his pressures have resulted in a successful winning of the ball. And he does exactly what he says on the tin. 60 successful tackles in the midfield third. That is nearly 2/3 more than his closest rival, which is John McGinn. If you're a ball-winning central midfielder, you need to win the ball in central midfield. And Christian Norgard does that. So he's my pick because he does what he's told. He's a good boy. He does what's said on the tin. He wins the ball in midfield. He presses high, and he allows Christian Eriksen and Ivan Toney to grab all the glory. So Christian Norgard is my pick for most underrated in the Premier League. We're going to wrap up with the last two games. One not so exciting and one packed with excitement. Unfortunately, Kaya, we're going to give you what we think is the one that's not as exciting, and that's Norwich against Burnley. Norwich are allergic to scoring goals. They just can't seem to score goals. And we know, unfortunately, their time in the Premier League is probably done. Whereas Burnley, Sean Dyche has got a smile as wide as anything this week. They've beaten Everton. They've got themselves in touching distance of safety. And he was proved right all along by not panicking. If they win this, they could be out of the bottom three.
Yeah, we'll agree to disagree on the excitement levels of this game. I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's going to be an interesting match. I don't think it'll necessarily be the most entertaining, but in terms of the landscape at the bottom of the Premier League, I think it's quite an important one. I'm backing Burnley to win. I don't think anyone can really back Norwich to win any game of football right now, just because they can't score goals, like you said, and because they concede so many. I think Dean Smith's done a better job than Daniel Farke was doing, but it was a low bar. And Burnley looked decent on Wednesday against Everton. They, I think, are unlucky to concede both penalties. For me, both questionable penalties, and I think they could have won that game a lot more comfortably. But now they've got the momentum of that victory behind them. I'd really back them to stay up, and I think Wout Weghorst has done pretty well. Cornet's a really good goal threat, so they've made some smart additions to their side, which is obviously previously has always been a little bit more functional. But those guys are good, and I think they will get goals against Burnley. Having said they'll get goals, I only think they'll get one come Sunday, and I think that'll be enough for them to win a 1-0 victory.
Mate, Burnley's staying up, man. Did you see Sean Dyche? I don't think these guys know how to win an away game. Mate, that is the energy radiating off that man could light up a city. Are you kidding me? They're going to do it again, man. Sean Dyche, you can only respect him.
I just had this image.
He's the Premier League Diego Simeone. He's the Premier League Diego Simeone. If you ask Diego Simeone, who's your favourite manager of the Premier League, I guarantee you he says Sean Dyche. Guarantee you.
Diego Simeone wears Sean Dyche pyjamas. I just had this image of him going into the Everton dressing room and just ruffling Frank Lampard's hair after doing that to him. But there's still a long way to go, but Burnley are moving in the right direction. Right, final game of part one and the prediction section of the podcast is the little known. No one's talking about it. No one's focusing on it. You might have even forgotten that it's going on this weekend. Manchester City hosting Liverpool. Potential title decider. The game of the year. Let's be honest. This is absolutely building up to be a massive one. And one of the interesting aspects of this is that aside from the potential of Ruben Diaz not making it in time, Mo, and being fit to feature, both sides are fully fit. Both managers are up for it. Both teams are in fantastic form. Both teams are pushing for a treble, potentially a quadruple. This is all set up to be an absolute blockbuster. Is it going to meet expectation?
No. When have these games ever met expectation? No. This is not Barcelona versus Real Madrid. This is Man City, Liverpool. These two teams are so focused on defense in their own ways. With City, it's keeping the ball. With Liverpool, it's actually having an amazing defense. There's no way this game's going to be fun. Like Anfield was fun, right? Because Liverpool weren't quite at their best selves, and so City bodied them repeatedly, and then Liverpool still managed to score 2 goals. So that game was fun because Liverpool weren't quite at their best, and City were a bit vulnerable at the back. The way these two teams are playing right now, this game will be awful. I mean, it'll be really good, but it won't be fun. Like there won't be end-to-end action. It will be really, really high stakes, really tense. I mean, this is game. You said it's potential title decider. This is a title decider. If City win this game, they go 4 points clear. Liverpool got a much harder run in. It's over. If Liverpool win this game, having come back from 14 points was the gap at one point, City are going to crumble. Forget about it. Like Liverpool will feel invincible. We've seen before when Liverpool do impossible things or seemingly impossible things, it gives them a feeling of invincibility. When they beat Barcelona 4-0 at Anfield without Mohamed Salah or Sadio Mane, everyone was like, "What? That's not possible." And they did it, right? And then after that, look at the run they went on the Premier League. I think they drew one game against Man United, and that was it. They won the other 27 games. That's absurd. When they get the feeling they're invincible, they become invincible, right? So Liverpool come from 14 points back to take the lead and go top of the Premier League. They're going to run away with it. Forget it. They'll win every single game the rest of the season, and that'll be it. So whoever wins this game wins the title. It's that simple, And yeah, to me, it's going to be great to watch. It'll be so involving. It won't be fun. But then it's the same thing. What do you define fun? I thought Man City Atletico Madrid was amazing. I loved it. People were saying, it was boring, it wasn't exciting. I thought it was great watching City play. City played the most outrageously good game of football I've seen in a long time. And they only won 1-0. And they didn't really create loads of chances either. But the way they dominated and pinned Atletico in was just obscene. They're so good. They're so good, it's ridiculous. Like Jacques Cancelo was playing these passes. I was like, how are you playing these? The passes weren't even leading to anything, not like shots or anything. I was just like, these passes are incredible. If Erling Haaland played for Man City or Harry Kane had gone to Man City, he would have scored 4 or 5 goals in that game. That's how many chances City created, good chances for a striker. But in the end, they didn't even have shots off them without a striker. And Liverpool was such a good team at just winning games, right? They're just so good at it. They can sit deep. Their midfield works hard. And this is what I'm saying. It's going to come down to midfield battle, right? That's what it's going to come down to ultimately. Because City have the dominance in midfield. They have the midfield three, and they have Joao Cancelo playing midfield. They have Kyle Walker playing midfield. Bernardo Silva drops back plays midfield. So it's basically 5-6 guys in there all at one time. There's always 3 guys in there, basically, at minimum. Right, there's always 3 guys in there. Whether it's always Rodri, and then sometimes it's defensive midfielders, sometimes it's the wingers, sometimes it's whoever. There's always 3 guys in there. They always have control of that midfield part. Liverpool's midfield is different, right? Liverpool can defend, knuckle down, and hit on the break. It's going to be interesting to see what Klopp does here, because previously he's always tended to sort of drop Thiago out and bring in a worker. Curtis Jones at Anfield in the last game, Milner sometimes in big games this season, and he goes full workhorse in midfield. But Thiago is playing quite well right now, and Liverpool are doing quite well with Thiago, playing progressively, and he can defend as well. He's a good defender. And he knows Pep as well. He knows Pep's teams. So if Klopp really goes for it and tries to actually engage Liverpool in a game of football, City in a game of football, I should say. It sounds weird to say, but I think it might actually work out better for him, just in the sense that there's no way City are expecting that. City are expecting Liverpool to come in, hunker down deep, and try and break in behind with that amazing front three running into spaces, which, by the way, it's also a very viable strategy for City, especially if, as you say, Ruben Diaz isn't going to play. Because Joao Cancelo, as we saw at Anfield, Joao Cancelo bossed that game, but Salah did him twice for both Liverpool goals, completely stitch him up. So he's not the greatest defender in the universe. But it's going to be it's such a great game. It's such a massive, tense game. The key is that obviously the midfield battle is key. That's one thing. Is Jota going to start? I imagine he is. Michael Owen made that prediction based on the fact that Salah and Mane went off midweek that Jota's going to start. I mean, probably a good shout. But Firmino could give Liverpool a bit of extra control, a bit of extra pressing if they want it. I don't know. But the other key, the final key, is Phil Foden, right? I mean, BT went a bit nuts with their praise of him. Like, that's saying he's going to become the most decorated English player ever. Like, Paul Scholes has won 10 Premier League titles. It's going to take a bit to go ahead of that. Don't get me wrong, but he's already got 3, right? So, and he's only 21. So it is possible, to be fair, but Guardiola would have to stay at Man City, I would feel. But Foden is great, and he's an X factor, and he does well against Liverpool in particular, right? Early in the game this season, he had 49 touches, 8 crosses, 8 touches in the opposition box, 7 passes into the box, 5 ball recoveries, 2 shots, 1 goal, which was against the equaliser, and then he basically created the second equaliser as well with that cross, which was deflected into De Bruyne's path. He was a menace that game. And I know he was playing Milner and not Trent, but Trent isn't a great defender anyway. And as Gabriel Martinelli showed recently, if you just keep running at Trent, not even that he will necessarily fold, he might even do well, but he will be too occupied defending you to actually go up the other end and hurt you. That's why Liverpool did so well against Arsenal did so well against Liverpool, I should say, because they just kept Trent busy defending the whole game. And so he couldn't get forward in attack. And as we've seen recently, without Trent, Liverpool are about half as good, in terms of attack, because he's so important to their. I mean, I talked about Bruno Fernandez's expected assists this season. Trent's got 10 plus expected assists, more than almost double the next guy. Trent's a phenomenon, right? So keeping him occupied defending is a huge thing. That's why I think Foden is so key. I think what they'll do is they'll put him wide, like they did at Anfield, they'll put him wide left in the Sane position, and they'll just say, look, keep going at him. Just run at him all game long. Stay wide, hold him wide, and run at him. And keep looking for Foden. Cancelo will tuck in, play in midfield. He'll even play De Bruyne on the left instead of the right and push De Bruyne up into that space around. Basically, they'll try and gang up on Trent, and on the right they'll just keep control and keep it safe and keep an eye on Robertson and his overlapping runs. Liverpool's whole game plan has to be to release Salah, Mane, and Jota on the break, and they can do that. They can do that in a heartbeat, especially with the likes of Henderson, who's got great long-range passing. Fabinho's got long-range passing. Thiago is obviously excellent. It's such a high-stakes game. It's almost impossible to call. But if I had to make a prediction, I would say City would just have too much, because Liverpool don't have a good record at the Etihad. They haven't won a league match at the Etihad since 2015-16. That was pre-Guardiola. They tend to lose there, or at best they get a draw. I would say it's probably going to be 1-0 City. But it's going to be really tense and really fun to watch. It won't... Well, if you like watching tactical battles, it's not going to be a lot of end-to-end action. I don't think so. I mean, who knows? The last one was 2-2. But I would imagine it's been very tight, very tense. So keep an eye on it, watch it, but don't expect that it's going to blow your socks off.